In the beginning was a dispersed mass of gas and dust. That is the considered view put forward by modern science to account for the origins of our solar system. About 4,700 million years ago, our planet cooled enough for the gases to liquefy. Yet it was not until the Earth's atmosphere produced a whole range of complex chemicals that the right conditions for life evolved. Even then, it required some 500 million years before the first living cell divided into the types that originated all animal and plant life. So long before primitive man appeared, the natural world was already rich in animal and plant species with their myriad sounds, scents, and colors. Modern man only made his appearance some 100,000 years ago, a being that embodied a force different from all other natural forces. A being who could not only assess his place within the natural system, but who also had the imagination to explore it, manipulate it, and conquer it to his own design and advantage. Man the hunter became man the farmer about 10,000 years ago. And in Asia Minor, the discovery of metal and the use of alloys led to the world's first industrial revolution. All great civilizations in early history were made of cities based formerly around settlements of farmers, inhabited by craftsmen, metalworkers, and laborers. They were governed by men of superior class and intellect. Such civilizations included Bronze Age Mesopotamia, the ancient Egyptian kingdoms ruled by the pharaohs, and Persia, the conquerors of Assyria, Babylon, and Egypt, which formed a mighty and enduring empire, giving to its wide realm a single rule of law, and passed a heritage of culture to the Arab world. In all these civilizations, religion played a vital part. And in the lives of the Hebrew tribes, it was all-encompassing. In fact, the Jews saw themselves from the beginning as a special people because of their belief in Yahweh, the only God who had a covenant with his chosen people. Further west, Greece was born, the civilization which laid the foundations of later Western culture, inspired by its brilliant philosophers, poets, and its love of democratic principles. The Roman Empire, built by rulers following in the wake of tough, highly disciplined armies, brought law and order to much of Europe, built superb roads and viaducts, and constructed cities whose traces today still testify to the beauty of their architecture. In India, the religion of the people, Hinduism, had the most ancient roots of all. Buddhism soon made its appearance in India and spread to southeast China, where it helped to enrich a civilization already 1,000 years old, a civilization rich in arts, science, philosophy, and the skills of government. On the other side of the world, civilization had also been firmly established in what we now call South America, occupied by the Mayas and the Aztecs of Mexico and the Incas of Peru, with their colossal sculptured temples. However, it was with the growth of Islam spreading out from the Arabian Peninsula that civilization and religion went hand in hand as a unified movement. While Asiatic and Frankish hordes threatened to plunge the world into an age of darkness, Muslim scholars kept the flame of enlightenment burning, preserving the knowledge of ancient Greece that was to prove an inspiration to the European Renaissance of the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries. Our present-day Western civilization has been shaped and influenced by 5 major phases in history. Each phase has its own distinctive achievements and values, each sequence making for a continuous process of change and evolution. The first of these major phases was the Middle Ages, when Christendom produced over 1,000 years of unity, followed by the Renaissance, a period of reformation, when Europe acquired much of the Greek philosophy and culture, which had been guarded by the Muslims against the plundering barbarians, and reintroduced to the West by returning crusaders. The third major phase, during the 17th century, saw a new zeal for learning, an age when philosophers and scientists began to employ reason and experiment to discover the secrets of the universe. It was also an age when monarchs and leaders possessed absolute power. The age of enlightenment and liberty, between 1763 and 1870, witnessed revolution spreading from America to reach Europe in 1789. The revolution lasted 60 years. And during this time, kings were overthrown, and the idea of equality and liberty for every man and woman became enshrined in the laws and statutes of the day in many nations. But it was not only political and ideological revolution that boiled in Europe's cauldron. The smoke of the Industrial Revolution rose up from England's green and pleasant land, and her people came in their hundreds of thousands from the fields to the factories. It was too sudden a change for any society, and it threw up immense problems of welfare. It spread quickly to the rest of Europe, and eventually laid the seeds of destruction by setting one nation against the other in fierce competition for spheres of influence, both commercial and political. The fifth phase can be identified as the emergence of the modern world from 1914 onwards. The arrival of the 20th century was greeted as the dawn of a new age, and the belief that machinery capable of mass production would transform our lives for the better. This optimism lasted a few short years before being so cruelly and finally shattered. The 1914-18 war, the war to end all wars, killed millions of people, laid waste much of Europe, embittered and bankrupted the German nation, and led to economic misery and unprecedented social unrest. It was the war that saw the rapid development of the aeroplane, accelerated the evolution of the submarine, and perfected techniques of mass slaughter. Throughout the depressing 30s, Europe edged nearer and nearer to the horrors of the Second World War, in spite of the efforts of the League of Nations. Millions of older people in the Western world would endorse the view that World War II was the most significant watershed in recent history. Its effects, social, political, economical, cultural, spiritual, and technological, have surpassed those created by any other upheaval in man's existence. Towards the end of the conflict, the most devastating weapon ever invented was unleashed, the nuclear bomb. 2 were dropped on Japanese cities to bring the war swiftly to an end. Across the victory celebrations passed a chilling shadow to darken man's hopes of a sunnier post-war world. Millions of children have now been born under that shadow, a shadow that is lengthening ominously in world affairs today. In the immediate post-war years, the developed nations began to regather their strength, and their peoples demanded, almost as a right, more and more material rewards for their labors, and technology was not slow to supply them. Television became a necessity in every home. Refrigerators, cars, and telephones were no longer the symbols of the comfortably off. Advances in medical science and welfare kept the health of nations at the highest level. But the ever-advancing tide of materialism led inevitably to the neglect of spiritual values. The adult population set a poor example for the young, who were learning that hedonism and disrespect for authority and tradition formed an exciting basis for a way of life. This decline in spiritual values has continued unabated to the present day. Disillusioned youth runs faster and faster in its frantic pursuit of new and ephemeral pleasures, whipped along by the frenzied commercialism of the pop culture. Among the older generations, material prosperity is considered a higher objective than personal fulfillment and harmonious relationships. So, in spite of the vast increase in educational opportunities, the comprehensive social welfare programs, the many liberalizing influences abroad today, the innumerable benefits of technology, and all the material comforts of life, man is not the happiest of creatures. Our tragedy is that the means are available for improving the conditions of life for the whole human race. But instead, we are faced at best by colossal problems, at worst by catastrophe, perhaps even total annihilation. We have succeeded in putting men on the moon, but disaster in our stars. Let us run through some of the problems facing mankind, all of them seemingly incapable of solution by any of its rulers, statesmen, economic experts, or men of goodwill, all apparently impervious to any doctrine, theory, or system. Let's start with environmental pollution and the squandering of non-renewable resources, which may easily upset the delicate and intricate balance of the planet's ecosystem and endanger our very biological survival. We are well on the way to destroying our own planet because there is no overriding, internationally constituted body to monitor and control the stripping away of our natural resources. In addition, we suffer pollution of land, sea, and air by aggressive competition among the world's industrial organizations. We are faced by an explosive population growth, and by the end of this century, it is estimated that the world's population will be more than 7 billion, doubling thereafter roughly every 25 years. Clearly, this has been a contributory factor to widespread poverty and hunger. About 3/4 of the human race are underfed and undernourished, and a great proportion of them are starving. In 1978, according to official sources, 12 million children died as a result of starvation. Further problems on a global scale include disease, ill health, and lack of shelter in vast areas of the Third World. Terrorism and violence. Political tyranny, resulting in atrocities against minorities and large numbers of refugees. Religious intolerance coupled to fanaticism and arrogant nationalism. The breakdown of social order, strikes, and continuous confrontation between management and labor. But perhaps most serious of all, the acceleration of the arms race between the Western and Eastern powers, with the inevitable danger of all-out nuclear war. A doom-laden catalogue indeed. Some may think these problems are exaggerated, that mankind has always faced what seemed at the time to be insuperable difficulties, and has always survived them. But can anybody honestly say that any previous period in human history has experienced problems so universal in scale and in so potentially dangerous a combination? These problems are all indicative of man's conflict with himself, with his fellow man, and with his environment. We are beyond the 11th hour and perilously close to midnight. The three major challenges facing mankind at this late hour could be how to establish universal and lasting peace, how to manage the limited resources available on our planet, how to cure the deep spiritual malaise which has spread to nearly all corners of the globe. These challenges are so closely linked and so worldwide in scope that the response must be global in execution if man is to meet them successfully. What then are the possible ways open to us in order to avoid the impending catastrophe, face the challenges effectively, and triumph over this formidable task? Let us examine the only two possible options open to mankind. The first of these is the political option. All political systems in operation today suffer from a number of flaws. For example, an overemphasis of the leader figure, a tendency to create divisions in society, and the fact that the political system is based inevitably on the national sovereign state, and therefore cannot offer worldwide solutions to daily global problems. The self-defined interests of the national power system and the welfare of mankind in general do not coincide. Indeed, in many instances, they are diametrically opposed to one another. The second option is the religious option. If man is to face up to the challenges of his age, a profound change in his attitude is essential. He must develop a willingness to regard the interests of humanity above his own immediate needs. History presents plenty of evidence that when religion is pure and vigorous, it leads man to his greatest spiritual and moral achievements. But when a religion weakens, it ceases to be a guiding force. Many of our leading thinkers believe that lack of spiritual inspiration and moral leadership, particularly in our recent past, has been an important factor in the alienation of the educated and certainly of the young. Furthermore, they have come to realize that a religion that is capable of helping man to deal with worldwide issues, that appeals to all cultural and religious backgrounds, and that provides guidance on social organization as well as on matters at an individual level, implies only one thing: that humanity is in need of a new religion which embraces all other religions within its fold. The followers of Baha'u'llah firmly believe that the Baha'i faith is that new religion. Its principal tenets of intellectual integrity, the essential unity of religions, and the basic oneness and wholeness of mankind open the door for the gathering of all the children of man as one family. They believe that the teachings of Baha'u'llah provide for a new and highly democratic system of participatory government crowned by a world assembly, and for the application of spiritual principles to social as well as individual conduct. One of its principal teachings, namely the complementary roles of science and religion, can and will be a great factor in bringing about a truly civilized world society. Let us now look a little closer at some of the claims and teachings of the Baha'i faith. Baha'i teachings stress that man, in his search for knowledge, should look to both science and religion. Science deals with the discovery of facts, with the material needs of man. Religion with his moral and spiritual requirements. Both are rational. Both are the two most potent forces affecting the destiny of man. Both are facets of the same truth. Science alone cannot provide for man's happiness and fulfillment, and religion by itself is incapable of satisfying the never-ceasing desire to discover more about himself and the universe he inhabits. Interweaving the faith of religion with the discipline of scientific inquiry could be the strongest bond between men of every race, creed, and political belief. Like many religions, Baha'i teachings recognize that although God is unknowing in his essence, the evidence of his existence is all around us to see, in nature and in man himself. Baha'u'llah says,
"Every created thing in the whole universe is but a door leading into his knowledge, a sign of his sovereignty, a revelation of his name, a symbol of his majesty, a token of his power, a means of admittance to his straight path."
It is another article of the Baha'i faith that all revealed religions are but different stages of the same faith of God, progressively proclaimed by such educators of humanity as Moses, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, and now the Bab and Baha'u'llah. There are always two aspects to the teachings of these educators. First, the universal theme that embraces love of God, love of man, justice, humility, charity, mercy, forgiveness, faithfulness, and moderation. These form the great truths of religion. Secondly, social teachings, which are given not only in response to the pressing needs of the time, but also in anticipation of the requirements of the age in which they are revealed. Baha'is believe that this principle of progressive revelation is a necessary part of the religion of God and will continue for as long as man is on this planet. Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the faith, states,
Unification of the whole of mankind is the hallmark of the stage which society is now approaching. Unity of family, of tribe, of city-state, and nation have been successfully attempted and fully established. World unity is the goal towards which a harassed humanity is striving.
Baha'u'llah says,
The earth is but one country, and mankind its citizens. The fundamental purpose animating the faith of God and his religion is to safeguard the interests and promote the unity of the human race.
Abdu'l-Baha, the eldest son and successor of Baha'u'llah, has written movingly on this theme.
Consider the flowers of a garden. Though differing in kind, color, form and shape, yet this diversity increases the charm and adds beauty. Diversity of hues, form and shape enriches and adorns the garden and heightens the effect thereof. In like manner, where diverse shades of thought, temperament and character are brought together under the power and influence of one central agency, the beauty and glory of human perfection will be revealed and made manifest. Naught but the celestial potency of the Word of God is capable of harmonizing divergent thoughts, sentiments, ideas, and convictions of the children of men.
Other principles of the Baha'i faith are that every man and woman should seek the truth independently, unfettered by dogma, and without preconceived ideas and notions.
That he or she must relinquish all facets of prejudice and superstition.
That a universal and compulsory education must be every man and woman's birthright.
That equal rights, privileges and opportunities should be accorded to both men and women.
That extremes of poverty and wealth should be abolished, and that solutions to economic problems are essentially spiritual in nature. That a language should be chosen from the existing languages or a new one constructed, and be taught in every school throughout the globe as an auxiliary world language to facilitate better understanding amongst the nations of the world. That the goal is world peace with all it entails. It is a recipe by any standards for the elimination of all forms of provincialism, insularities and differences, whilst still stressing the need for a true and intelligent patriotism, the retention of national cultures, and obedience to the sensible dictates of one's own government. In other words, unity in diversity. The unity of the human race, as envisaged by Baha'u'llah, implies the establishment of a world commonwealth, in which all nations are closely and permanently united, and in which the autonomy of its members of state and the personal freedom and initiative of individuals that compose them are completely safeguarded. This commonwealth must consist of a world legislature, whose members will ultimately control the entire resources of all the component nations, and will enact such laws as shall be required to regulate the life, satisfy the needs, and adjust the relationships of all races and peoples. A world executive, backed by an international force, will carry out the decisions arrived at, and will protect the organic unity of the whole Commonwealth. A world tribunal will adjudicate and deliver its compulsory and final verdict in all and any disputes that may arise between the various elements constituting this universal system. A world metropolis will act as the nerve center of a world civilization, the focus towards which the unifying forces of life will converge and from which the energizing influences will radiate. A mechanism of world intercommunication will be devised, embracing the planet, freed from national hindrances and restrictions, and functioning with swiftness and regularity. The economic resources of the planet will be organized, its raw materials will be tapped and fully utilized, its markets coordinated and developed, and the distribution of its products will be equitably regulated. The causes of religious strife will be completely abolished, and the inordinate distinction between classes will be obliterated. Destitution on the one hand and gross accumulation of ownership on the other will disappear. The enormous energy wasted on war, whether economic or political, will be directed to extend the range of human inventions and technological development, to increase material productivity and to exterminate disease. A world federal system will rule the entire planet and exercise unchallengeable authority. It will be a system in which force is made the servant of justice, whose life is sustained by its universal recognition of one God and its allegiance to one common revelation. Such is the goal towards which humanity, impelled by the unifying forces of life, is moving. Baha'is firmly believe that what this infant faith of God has already achieved provides sufficient guarantee that it will continue. In the words of Shoghi Effendi,
to forge ahead, capturing loftier heights, tearing down every obstacle, opening up new horizons, and winning still mightier victories, until its glorious mission, stretching into the dim ranges of time that lie ahead, is totally fulfilled.
Indeed, the Baha'i faith is growing rapidly throughout the world. Its teachings appeal to peoples of every country and from every background. Its message of love, unity and hope attracts followers in their thousands. People believe that man, though beset by a host of troubles, has a glorious future, and that it is the mission of every man of understanding to contribute to this future and share in its blessings. The same followers believe that the implementation of the teachings of Baha'u'llah on a world scale will see the most great peace established, when the earth will become a mirror reflecting the kingdom of God. Surely these claims warrant unbiased investigation by all intelligent people concerned with the alarming state of the world today.